Hello and welcome to this month's webinar in office hours. It's July 2025, and this month we're going to be covering planning for large purchases. So I have two facts here as an icebreaker. The US personal savings rate dipped to 4.5% in May of 2025, and this is below the long-term average of 8.4%. Next, Amazon Prime Day 2025 set a new record of $24.1 billion of online sales in the United States over a 4-day period. And this is up 30% from last year. Maybe the two are related. So, welcome. Here's our agenda for today. We're going to go over time horizons and different account types for these large purchases. We're going to then talk about the time value of money. Going to get a little bit technical, talking about the different formulas involved. We're going to use buying a home as an example of these different formulas. And then we're going to talk about other large purchases and wrap it all up with a 20% summary. Because as always, 20% of this presentation will provide 80% of the value. So I've just summarized that 20% for you, and you can find that at the end. So when we're planning for large purchases, first, understanding that large is different for everyone. So perhaps you have your eyes on a very nice jacket, and it's going to be $500, and you usually spend $150 on groceries a week. I think that's a good level set for everyone, so we understand what large is. It's different for everyone. So when considering making a large purchase, one of the first questions to answer is, what's your time horizon? Are you going to be making the purchase within the year, within the next 2 years, 3 to 5, or longer than 5 years? Because answering that question will help you decide what type of account you need to open in order to start saving for this large purchase. So in the short term, you want a very liquid type account, meaning that you can quickly convert it to cash and make the purchase that you want to make. And because you're making it rather quickly, you don't want to expose your cash to any risk, because if it becomes volatile and you need to make that purchase, you might end up making a purchase at an inopportune time. In the medium term, you can choose some asset classes which are less liquid because you've decided to make the trade-off, trading liquidity for a higher yield or return on your investment. So you're not able to access it as quickly as other types of accounts. However, you're being paid more because you don't have that access. In the long term, so this would be 5+ years, you want to focus more on tax advantaged accounts and more high growth accounts, more volatile, more risky, and then also less liquidity than the other two. So this would be your 401ks, HSAs, 529 accounts, even taxable brokerages. So a large part of the decision making, once you've decided your time horizon for your purchase, has to do with the time value of that money. So broadly, this is the idea that a dollar today is worth more than a dollar in the future. Because if I have this dollar today, I can invest it, and that dollar in the future will be worth more. Also, I'll be potentially avoiding inflation, and then so my dollar is not devalued. We'll talk about that later. When running calculations around the time value of money, these are the variables that we'll need to be familiar with: future value, present value, interest rate. This could be the rate of return. It could also be the discount rate, and then the number of periods. And the interest rate is per period. So just understanding that, like, if you want to solve for a monthly value, you would need to divide an annual interest rate by 12. Okay, here we have two formulas for solving for the future value and the present value of money. Using these formulas, we can make sure that we're reaching goals efficiently and benefiting from compound interest. Okay, I have two examples here. In the first example, we're solving for the future value. We're answering the question, how much will we have 10 years from today? So the present value is $5,000 and it's returning an 8% yield. So it's probably in some sort of brokerage account, right? 8% yield is pretty good. So we're also going to be holding this investment for 10 years. So when you plug these numbers into the formula, you find that in 10 years, you'll have $10,749.62, right? Just because of the growth of the account. Okay, next, how much do I need to save today to have $20,000 in 10 years? So in this case, we have a goal. We want to have $20,000 10 years from today. Maybe we're going to open a business or buy a business or go on a very nice vacation, right? And we have the foresight, we have the forethought to start to put money away today. And if we want to put away money, how much money should we put away? Assuming an 8% rate of return, pretty standard rate of return for stock yields. And it's 10 years from today, right? So when we plug in the numbers, we see that we'll need to save $9,263.86 today in order to have that $20,000 in the future. But what if you don't have those large lump sums today, right, to invest and allow compound interest to take effect? Well, that's okay, because along with the time value of money calculations, there are also annuity calculations, which take into account regular payments, either accumulating or decumulating, either building a sum of money or dispersing a sum of money. So we have a new variable for these annuity calculations. This is the payment variable. Payments would occur at the end or beginning of each period, depending how the function is set. Another thing we need to consider is adjusting for inflation. So inflation means that things cost more in the future. If we would like to understand our purchasing power in the future, because today's dollars would buy less in the future because things are more expensive, we just need to adjust our rate of return for the inflation. So this is the formula to solve for the real return based on your nominal or expected return, and then taking into account the inflation rate, which is just an assumption. Economists are paid a lot of money to predict inflation rates, and they often get it wrong. So talk with your financial planner about a inflation rate assumption that you're comfortable with. And then we're going to put it all together. I put all these things together on a spreadsheet for my clients. I'll review that for you here. So we have the time value of money calculations. As you can see, these cells here are dynamic. So if we change these cells, we're going to solve for different values. Okay, so let's see. And then we have the 4 annuity functions as well. These are also called mortgage calculations because they can be used to solve for mortgage, like payment values, even the rates that you're paying. We'll review that later in this presentation. And then here I have a small table to solve for that real rate of return. So you, as a viewer of this video, can find that below. Or if you're a client of mine, you already have this in your inbox. So here's our next example. We're buying a home, okay? Our goal, buy a $400,000 home 10 years from today. So first we need to solve for our down payment. Our down payment is going to be 20% because we want to avoid PMI. So on a $400,000 home, our down payment will be $80,000. This will be the future value that we'll want to reach so that we can buy that house 10 years from today. Our future value, $80,000. We're solving for our present value, how much we'll have to put away today. We're assuming an 8% rate of return in line with the returns of the stock market. And our number of periods is 10. And this is years. We're making no payments in this example. So just one lump sum. So if we plug that into the sheet I shared with everyone, we'll find the lump sum would have to be $37,055.47. Well, okay, that's great, but that's still a pretty high number, right? So maybe you have $10,000 today, right? So in our next scenario, we're going to solve for how much we would need to save annually if we start with a $10,000 lump sum in order to reach our down payment goal. So solving for this, pretty simple, just as before, we're just plugging in these numbers. So we're $80,000 still our down payment goal. This time we have a $10,000 starter fund where we're going to put this into the account. It's going to start getting that 8% return every year, but also we're going to commit to making an annual payment. We're assuming a payment at the end of the year, and then that payment will grow along with our principal to reach our future value in order to buy this home. So we see we would need to make a contribution of $4,032.06 at the end of every year in order to reach our goal within 10 years. All right. And then just for fun, because we can, what is the mortgage payment going to be when we finally make this purchase? Assuming our loan value, our mortgage value is going to be $320,000. So this is just the total price minus our down payment. It's going to be a 30-year mortgage at an 8% interest rate. So the first thing we have to do to solve for a monthly mortgage payment is divide our interest rate by 12. And so we get 30 years becomes 360 months. And 8% per year becomes 0.66% monthly. Now that we have our monthly values, we're going to plug these in and solve for our monthly payment on our mortgage. Our future value, we're going to be paying this mortgage off. So our future value is 0. Our present value is the loan value of $320,000. Our R value is our monthly interest rate at 0.66%. Period value is 360 months, right? So monthly, our payment would be $2,330.22. Okay, other large purchases where this type of thinking applies. This is what I do for clients. If a client comes to me and says, Tom, I'm thinking of buying a car, my car's getting kind of old. The AC stopped working, I'd like to get a new one before summer. I'd say first, time horizon sounds like it's going to be within a year. So we're going to talk about a cash account. And then we would assign a yield to that cash account, maybe 4% in a high yield savings account. And then either they have a lump sum to put towards that goal, or I would help them solve for the payments, monthly, yearly, however they would like to make those payments. They can make this purchase on a cash basis, earning interest the whole time, instead of perhaps going out and getting a loan from the bank. They're acting as their own bank. They've saved the cash, and now they've been earning interest the whole way through, and so they're able to make this larger purchase. So cars are very common. Large vacations, I love the idea of putting a large sum away when your child's very young for a future vacation with them, something you don't necessarily need, but would create those memories of childhood. Education and retirement are also lump sum goals. You're buying a degree, you're buying an education, and then retirement, you're buying the ability not to go to work anymore. You're buying your paycheck for the rest of your life. And like with those annuity calculations, you're able to decumulate and make it into a series of payments to support your lifestyle throughout retirement. So here's our 20% summary. First, Match the account type to the time horizon. Make sure it makes sense for you to reach your goals. Understand the time value of money. Make the most of money now and allow compounding interest to take effect. Plan your goals in advance. If you just bought a car, it's a perfect time to start saving for your next car. Cars don't last forever. Small payments today to an account with a longer horizon and greater growth would save you money in the future, outpace inflation, grow faster than inflation, making sure that your dollars aren't being devalued, and make the most of your goals, reach them efficiently, right? And apply this also vacations, education, and retirement. So that's all for this month. Thank you very much for joining us. If you liked what you saw here today, leave me a comment, suggest new topics, and thanks.